What's going on, everybody? It's FREEDO here for your Overwatch massive patch on the PTR, the new map Rialto, as well as a host of buffs and nerfs. Let's check it out. The new map Rialto you will have seen in the Retribution game mode, but now it will be the day version of the map, which sounds good. Everyone likes new maps, but what I like even more is balance changes. Genji gets a nerf, and quite a significant one actually. The hitbox size of Deflect has been reduced. The devs say that the hitbox originally was big enough that it would sometimes reflect projectiles that were pretty far away from him, and they've tightened it up, which should solve this problem while still fully protecting him from projectiles that would hit him from the front. This makes sense, but I don't actually think this was required. I know they were talking about making the hitbox more reliable in terms of what you see is what you get, because right now it's just this big invisible wall of reflection while Genji is doing the animation. I wonder how easy it'll be to sneak a projectile from above him or a little bit to the side. The old Deflect hitbox was so large that almost no matter what, unless you were directly behind him, your projectile would get reflected. So a pretty significant nerf, and I don't think it was actually needed, to be honest, especially with so many things that are really good against Genji right now. But I also don't think it's so impactful that he'll be unplayable, so only time will tell. But more importantly is the crazy Hanzo changes. Storm Bow's projectile speed increased from 85 to 100. Sonic Arrow's cooldown reduced from 20 seconds to 12 seconds, but also its duration and radius goes down significantly as well. It's only gonna last 6 seconds and only spreads out for 7 meters, which isn't too much of a reduction. The biggest thing I was worried about is that they would make the radius of effect too small. It's not going to be as generous as it was, but having it up more often, probably in this new version, I'm going to say I think is overall a buff, actually. And you'll be able to more fluidly use it, like twice a fight rather than once a fight, which is going to up the situational awareness of you and the entire team. Even further Hanzo buffs, now he gets a lunge, allowing him to jump while in the air to leap horizontally, which is pretty significant because Hanzo already was a bit more nimble than, say, the likes of McCree, who can't run up walls. And as you start to stack these different ideas together, it's almost difficult to see why you would want to pick McCree other than the fact that he has a flashbang. But that's something we might cover more in the future. More important is his new ability, Storm Arrows, which replaces Scatter. Bye-bye Scatter. Hanzo can now rapidly fire up to 6 arrows that deal reduced damage, but are always fired at full power. So the damage goes down, but the arc of them will be as if you fully charge them. The devs say the goal of these Hanzo changes are to allow him to have new options and maintain his high damage output while removing the frustration of fighting against the old Scatter Arrow. Hanzo is now much more mobile with his new lunge ability, and with the combination of the bow projectile speed increase and the new Storm Arrows ability, he can now deal his high damage more consistently than ever before. Yeah, no kidding. This new Hanzo is crazy. I'm sure we're going to be talking about him a lot more in the future. So many meta implications now that he's moved to a much more reliable character. In fact, I think it's possible that this new Hanzo will be like the reworked Junkrat, where you take a character that was incredibly niche and move them into an incredibly reliable place. But Hanzo, unlike Junkrat, takes a bit more skill with his shots, meaning that this is going to be an incredibly impactful change at the higher levels of play especially. Speaking of Junkrat, he's getting a nerf that I'm sure many of you are going to be happy to hear, and as someone who has been abusing how powerful Junkrat is, I can't even say that this is unwarranted. On his grenades, the projectile size has been decreased from 0.3 to 0.2. Now, I assume that means 10%. Sometimes these coding language mathematics don't equate to what I assume them to mean, but I think it's a safe bet to say. Realistically, Junkrat nades were one of the few tree trunk-sized projectiles that were left in Overwatch. Really hard to dodge, even when their model looks to not be hitting you at all. They chunk you down quite reliably. The other nerf was to his tire. The movement speed has been decreased from 13 to 12, and again, this one's a bit tricky because, for example, in Overwatch League, we can see the tire get massive value sometimes, and then other times, not any value at all. This one's a bit tricky to balance because it can ride up to the skybox and drop down on people. It has a lot of applicability, but it very easily can be too slow and wonky to use and never get any kills, because we've seen that be the case prior to its buff many patches ago. The devs comment on these changes and say, the changes are aimed at lowering some of the most frustrating parts about playing against Junkrat. Decreasing the frag launcher's projectile speed means that you'll have to aim a bit more carefully to land projectile hits, and slowing down the Riptire's movement gives his opponents slightly more time to destroy it before it detonates. Okay, you got me. I can't even complain at these nerfs. You're right. He's a pain to play against and really strong right now. It's a miracle that he isn't run even more in Overwatch League, to be honest. Moving on, more changes as well. Lucio's wall ride got some significant buffs. Now it's less likely to be interrupted along a single surface, and he can go around corners, both outside corners and inside corners, without having to leave a wall. That's a really big deal. He's going to sort of smoothly transition from wall to wall as he turns a corner. And also, a bit of a tricky one, can now land back on the same wall after leaping away, provided his leap takes him far enough away from the original jumping off point. So what that means is, in these really complicated trapeze artist wall climbs that some people do, if you jump far enough off the wall, there sort of will be a soft reset for you to be able to reattach to the same wall. It's not going to be a hard and fast rule, but instead have a bit of a invisible cooldown that you can abuse by reattaching to the wall. Exactly what this is, we'd have to test a bit more to know, but what I'm more interested in is that Soundwave now doesn't consume ammo. Soundwave, of course, is his boop. It used to consume 4 ammo per boop, and before you're worried about it being Boop City with boop spam as far as the eye can see, remember that it's still on a cooldown as well. And honestly, how much can you really do by spamming boop anyway? There's only so many boop opportunities as it is, and if you think about this, it's a pretty impactful buff for a lot of reasons, because it's going to increase Lucio's burst damage output, which actually matters a lot more than you might think. Having a limited amount of ammo prior to this meant that you really had to be careful on how you used your ammo in order to get any meaningful damage output at all. But now that you know you have that guaranteed 25 damage on the boop without having to use ammo, it's a whole extra burst that you're going to have in your clip, which is going to help you in a lot of duels. Also, although you might think of Boop for its offensive abilities to knock people off the map and score you some sick frags as Lucio, I think it's much more key for fending off flankers, actually, because knocking a Winston or a Genji away from your teammates every couple seconds, and also having a bit of extra ammo, is really going to help solidify your backline quite a bit. And I can't complain because I am a Lucio fan, one of the most pure support characters in the game. I'm a happy guy, but who won't be so happy is Tracer, who's getting a pulse bomb damage reduction, going down from 400 to 300. Yikes. The developers say Pulse Bomb was too good at killing tanks who can be easy to stick due to their size. This damage reduction makes it less powerful as a tank destroyer while keeping it lethal against most other heroes. Now, of course, remember, there's some heroes that have 250 health, but if they had armor, not only would it reduce the damage of the Pulse Bomb itself somewhat, very little, but it would also mean that now a Reaper or a Mei with armor on them would actually outlast an entire Pulse Bomb. That's incredible. And honestly, don't undersell how much the damage reduction is going to matter against tanks as well, because it used to be you could Pulse Bomb a Winston and then maybe need about 1 clip to finish him off. But now with the way it is, that's going to be far less the case. And even more so, remember the German man who got deleted from the pro meta because Tracer was sticking Pulse Bombs to him constantly. Reinhardt, he's going to be much more happy about this as well, and that's definitely a character that you're going to want to think about in this post-Tracer nerf meta. Well, guys, that's everything for the changes. Lots of crazy buffs and nerfs coming down the pipeline. How hyped are you for the new Hanzo? Let me know in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. It really does help us out and lets us know that you're enjoying the content, and if you haven't already, please subscribe because we upload each and every day, so you're going to want to hit the bell icon so that you get notified when our videos go live. Link to the description is our Twitter, where we tweet out news, updates, and dank memes. That's been it for me. I've been FREEDO. For your Overwatch, I'll see you guys next time.